Hi there. This is lecture number 1 on how to do block diagrams or structuring. You see several different names for it when you look around. A block diagram, when you put that together, your goal is to rearrange the text visually so you can see the flow of the thought, the flow of the ideas in a passage. Uh, with a program like Microsoft Word, it makes it really easy to do, and you can do a lot better interpretation. Now, first of all, this is different than the sentence diagramming you learn in grammar class. We're not going to be breaking it down that far. And really, on a case by case basis, you choose the size of the blocks depending on how detailed you need to be to understand the structure of the passage. So I'll be doing that for you this time. Now, structuring works best when the literature is focused on ideas and when you've got a lot of logical connectives, the becauses and fors and so that's and the therefores that put the ideas together. Now, here's where you've really got to learn to use the six serving men, the who, what, when, where, and why questions. And you've got to ask those questions of the text and let the text answer, and that'll let you figure out how you can put it all together. I mean, your goal is to figure out what the main idea is. And the main idea is probably a sentence with a subject and a verb. It's going to stand alone all by itself, a main clause. It'll make sense that way. And you can make this easier on yourself by marking the connectors up before you get too far in. Now, first thing you ought to do is change the layout to landscape. So just gives you more paper to work with. And you're going to want to put the main idea on the left margin of the paper, and you indent all the rest of the ideas to show their relationship to the other ideas that are there. And your connectives and the repetitions and the parallel structure is going to give you that information. Don't change the order of the words in the text. Just keep it the way it is. So here's a passage we've looked at. Let me go through and start by marking up the connectives. And it doesn't matter what color I mark them in. I think I'll choose yellow. That for is a preposition. That's not a because. If you try to put a because in there, it wouldn't make sense. So because my part, not going to do it. So for my part, I'm eager to preach the gospel to you also who are in Rome. For or because. I'm not ashamed of it. For it's the power of God to salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith. And then a comparison, as it's written, the righteous man shall live by faith. Let's think about the connectives for a second. That's going to help us get through here for our who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what does a so do? Well, a so is like a therefore. A so is a conclusion. And if we read the larger context, therefore, for my part, I'm eager to preach the gospel. Paul has just been talking about how he wished he could come to see them so he could impart a spiritual gift, but he'd been prevented, hadn't been able to happen. But therefore, so for my part, I am eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. You've heard me say this in class. Why are you eager to preach the gospel, Paul? For or because I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Why? For or because it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also the Greek. Well, how could that be? For, because in it, in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. As it's written, the righteous will live by faith. And remember, we spent some time back in the book of Habakkuk looking at these words in Habakkuk to figure out what they meant back there. And we realized that what the message of Habakkuk was is that righteous people live by faith all the time. They start their spiritual life by faith. They keep their spiritual life going by faith. So let's think this through. Where's the main idea? And I think it's right here. I am eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. So I start out by doing this. And then every place I have something that's going to help me explain what's going on, I'll make a new line out of it. On the assignment I'm giving you for tonight, I've already done this for you. I've already decided what the pieces are you're going to work with. And then I work on indenting things. I know I want to have my main idea on the left-hand margin. And so I use this tool up here in Word, and I just push that in. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to push all of this in. So now, right out here in the left-hand margin, I've got my main idea. I am eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. And up here, I've got the link to the preceding context. And down here, I've got a bunch of reasons. Why am I eager to preach the gospel? Because I'm not ashamed of it. But what is this telling me more about? This is telling me more about why he's not ashamed. Well, okay, then I indent that, because I want to be able to see the picture. Because I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it's the power of God to salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and the Greek. Well, why is that? How could the gospel be the power of God to salvation for everyone? Because in it, in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. That's why it's the power of God to salvation. Well, how could God's righteousness be revealed? From faith to faith. And the explanation is right there. Now, same words. We haven't changed the order. Haven't done anything, so we left it right the way it was. But now we can work our way through this. When we say, well, Paul, why were you eager to preach the gospel? Because he wasn't ashamed of it. Why aren't you ashamed of it? Because it's the power of God of salvation to everyone who believes. How could it be that? It saves people because in the gospel, God's righteousness is revealed. And people need to be saved because they need righteousness. Well, from faith to faith, all about faith? Yeah, that's the same thing Habakkuk was talking about. So what I've got now is a picture of Romans 1, 15 through 17. What's the main idea? I'm eager to preach the gospel. And if I were going to lead a Bible study or preach in this passage, I would tell my audience, there is a way for you and me to be eager to preach the gospel. There's some things we need to understand. We need to know the reason Paul was eager was because he wasn't ashamed of the gospel. And he wasn't ashamed of the gospel because of the power of the gospel to save. And the gospel has power to save because the gospel gives righteousness. And that has been God's plan from the very beginning. We're always meant to live by faith. So that's where this starts. Now, here's the hassle. The only way to figure this out is not only to watch me do one, but for you to do one. And so that's your next assignment. I've got a verse for you that is as simple as can be. And I've got it broken up into pieces. And so you've got to figure this out. So go back through this, go through it a couple times, and see what you can make of a verse that you already know really, really well.